My name is Laurien ten Houten. I work at the industry office of IDFA. And I would like to welcome you to this industry session. And I would really like to thank the partners for this session, Eurovod, Moving Docs, and Docs Barcelona. And I would like to introduce you our moderator of today, Ove Rishoj Jensen. And yeah, enjoy the session.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. As Laurien said, my name is Ove Rishoj Jensen, and I'm an independent documentary consultant and producer living and working out of Copenhagen in Denmark. And it's my pleasure to welcome you this afternoon and take you to this session. As Laurien said, we called it Europe's VOD platforms strike back. It was, of course, very tempting to call it Europe's VOD empire strikes back. And we could leave you guessing who is Darth Vader, but maybe we'll talk about that later on. We're going to have a session, of course, focusing about VOD and VOD platforms. As you can see, we have brought up a panel of movers, shakers, and survivors in this jungle of VOD. And they're going to introduce you a little bit to how they're working, what they're doing, and how they see the current market. Because I guess it's fair to say that the VOD market has been through a lot of changes, and it's going through a lot of changes. And I think we are seeing all the kind of classic phases of something new coming into a market, and that often happens when a new medium is introduced. There's first this phase of wonder that something new is happening, and it's fantastic and amazing. And then you go into the next phase where it's about either you have a very utopian or a very dystopian view on it. So some people thought that, wow, VOD is going to save the film industry, and other people said it's going to ruin the film industry. And now we're coming to a phase where we are coming into the third phase, which is more kind of a normalization of things, and we are learning a lot from our experiences, and we're gaining a knowledge and an understanding of how does this actually work, and what are the things we need to do and adapt in order to actually be on the VOD market. So these are some of the things that we're going to discuss today. And we're going to start out with the four distinguished panel members introducing you a little bit to who they are and what they do. And then we're going to have a little bit more an open debate about where are things now, what are the things we need to learn and understand. Because for us, an important part of this session is also, of course, having a dialogue, but also trying to empowering all of us so we understand the VOD market better, and we all can be better equipped to actually navigate it and understand it and gain from it. So that's really the reason why we're here today. So before we start, I want all of you to give a warm welcome to our four panelists. And I'm not going to say so much more because you're all going to introduce yourself and you're going to talk a little bit about what you do. So we start with you, Silvia. You're going to come up here first and give us a little introduction to how this world looks from your point of view.
Thank you very much, Thank you very much, IDFA, for hosting us. I'm very happy, actually, to be here with you because I'm coming from the exhibition and also a little bit distribution sector. So I worked 10 years, especially for art house and independent films. And a couple of years ago, I began working with the Cinetech.com and the Universine.com, which are two independent VOD platforms operating in France, and actually the Cinetech and Universine also in Germany and Austria. And when I began working in VOD, I realized that there was something going on very interesting. Actually, there was a small group of independent European platforms that were gathering together under a common umbrella. An umbrella that actually now is Eurovod. And Eurovod is the only network of independent European VOD platforms, which are basically covering 34 territories when they are international, but we also have global platforms. So from a small group of 10 companies, today we are covering 19 countries. We are 32 VOD services and 8 associate members. So a lot of things are going on in this sector. And I don't want to to explain what is going on in VOD, because actually we don't know. And that's the reason why we are gathering under this association, because we realize that we need to team up and understand us better and talk also with the industry better. So what we want to do is promote cultural diversity, basically, and also VOD as a channel for the distribution of audiovisual content. We are, since 1 year, developing a knowledge economy and a collaborative management within the VOD sectors, but also want to cooperate more with the chain of rights and the rest of the industry. Since last year, we have a really new strategic approach. We actually triplicate the number of members. So most part of our VOD platforms are operating with a catalog of almost 80% of European films. We open up the association also to the tech industries and to the other distributors, producer, or operators in the sector that would like to help us in distributing our films. We gather around 100 companies in 1 year in our activities, especially I'm going to introduce a little bit quicker our activities, but especially the European VOD meetings and our very first VOD Market Day. As I said, we are strengthening the dialogue with the film and the tech industries. So we're not only talking about film, we have to face a market which is actually run by companies who are tech companies and running e-commerce. So we are moving on another sector too. And we want to enhance transparency and data sharing among our members first, because we know that the big players don't always share the data, don't share the data in a standardized way. We really need to know more our market and what's going on. So we become an inclusive point of reference for the VOD services, funding schemes, and regulations. And of course, we are supporting all the initiatives that help us reaching and targeting better our audience. So keywords, cooperation. That's why we are here. I'm very happy to discuss with you afterwards and learning from you too. I'm going to be a little bit quicker. These are the European VOD meetings. Don't want to go too much into it. You can have a look on our website. If you want to meet us in Sofia next March, the deadline for application is the 15th December. It is more focused on VOD platforms, so the training course is run for the VOD sectors, but it's also open up to people which want to know more or open up VOD services, or that would like to know more the sector. Yeah, we did already three workshops in 1 year, gathering quite a lot of participants, and is not mentioned, but actually we are founded by the Creative Europe Media program, so thank you very much to the European Commission for helping us in reaching our goals. And the second event, where I have to put it, is not moving on. Okay, is the VOD Market Day. We also try to organize the first market for VOD platforms, but also for the rest of the chain of right and the industry. It took place in Venice on the 3rd December. 3rd September. And we gather 80 participants and almost 70 companies. These are our members. So 3 of them are here. Actually, they are also member of the board of directors. There is a huge variety of business models. There are not only national platforms, but also international, covering 2 or more territories, and the global platforms. We also cooperate with some associate members who are service providers, and which are actually helping us quite a lot to reach our goals. So let's go a little bit in detail on the VOD market. What I'm going to tell you now, it's not something I realized, but I really have to thank the European Audiovisual Observatory, and that exists for the data that I'm showing you. So the first snapshot is this. Pay TV revenues in 2018 worldwide are still leading the market. So OTT, even if is developing a lot, is not having all the cake at the moment. And as you can see, basically is developing, but OTT, even if it's growing, is not still there, is not still leading it. So pay TV has still the biggest revenues. These are the biggest market player worldwide. As you see, Netflix is the one who is having the biggest revenues, but still quite less compared to the pay TV operators. So, fact and figures, Europe, I'm going to explain you everything we know, not much, because there is an important lack of data and limited insights. So, again, thank you to the European Observatory with we are cooperating since last year for having this data. So, what we know, the market is very fragmented. There are very different players, very different models. TVOD, SVOD, AVOD, and William is going to get a little bit more in detail about that. Countries are different. A VOD platform who is successful in a country is not in another country. So we also have to consider really the local industry. It is dominated by the FANGs, of course, who are US tech giants, focusing on advertising, e-commerce, and they have a great power of customer relationships and power over suppliers. So devices, producers, media publisher, advertising, IT. SVOD is leading, and there is a strong concentration. Netflix and Amazon, as you already know, have the big piece of the pie, so 79% of subscribers and this 74% of revenues. And they are focusing on exclusive multi-territory right, who is disrupting a little bit the market, especially in some region of the world, and is increasing a lot the production, especially of series, but acquiring less European titles. We have a lot of films. There is a lot of availability of European content online. We will see that afterwards. But still, only, let's say, 10 titles are really promoted, especially on the bigger platforms. So VOD is really contributing a lot to the circulation of European films, but they are hidden in a bigger offer. And yeah, VOD is still a small fraction of the audiovisual market. So the pay TV is still the 87% of pay-on-demand revenues, and has the 65% of subscribers. So there is a lot of room for other players and for growth. Let's go a little bit quicker. As you see, only 5% of the audiovisual market is actually taken by the on-demand pay TV revenues, but we are growing very fast. So home video, DVD is still having more revenues, but growing, no, is losing 58% actually in the last year. And subscription is, as I said, still led by pay TV services. So we have 120 SVOD services in Europe, 170 TVOD. You can read a little bit the different main point. Yeah, let's say that TVOD today is still the one who is more curating and the films and targeting specialized audiences, and is more focused on film. Yeah, TVOD is still growing, but not compensating the loss of DVD. So this is another figure. I know that time is running, so I have to speed up a little bit. If you want to have the presentation, you can contact IDFA and they will forward it to you. So basically, pay TV is still leading, but growing only 2% per year, SVOD 41%. And one of the main reasons is because people stay more on TV, actually. When they subscribe to pay TV, they stay longer than a subscription on a SVOD channel. So this is it, a little bit more of insight. And talking about the SVOD market, as you can see, Netflix and Amazon are taking actually the 74% of the customer revenues. But also there are some big national broadcaster and player who are attracting the attention of the audience. And this is a TVOD market. So as you see, the TVOD retail revenue surpassed the rental. Yeah, but the revenues of TVOD still don't compensate the minus 3.5 billion euros lost by the DVD market. So, talking about the content, there is good news. Thanks to the VOD platforms, there is much more availability of content online, more international circulation of European titles, more diversity. We are targeting different audiences which are not covered by the bigger players. The documentary sector is going really well. So I would love also to have your feedback about your sector and how it's going on in this very moving market. And innovation is fostered, not only from a tech point of view, but also format and storytelling. And actually, documentaries are quite innovative on this. So still a little bit of figures. Let's say that the 34% of titles are in VOD only. So that means that don't find their place on a cinema release. So there is a huge part of the market that still is out there, only thanks to the VOD platforms, and not only the bigger players, but actually the independent platforms who are targeting specific audiences. Yeah, so from a sample of June of this year of the observatory, the 33% of recent film from 2015-18, non-theatrical, are available only online. And there is a lot of availability of unique content, as you can see. So this is the role of our group of independent European VOD platforms in this ecosystem. So I will let them talk and explain their job, because they are the expert, they are the one running VOD platform every day. But yeah, what we can see is that actually our content is more diverse. We have actually contributing a lot in the distribution of films that actually are curated and editorialized, and that will disappear in a bigger offer. And we are cooperating and getting stronger. So I hope that it has been useful, at least a little bit, and I will let them explain how it is running an independent VOD platforms every day. Jaume, I think it's your turn.
Yes. So thank you very much for providing this overview, Silvia. I think that kind of sets a good frame also for the whole discussion today. And now we move into some of the presentations of you who are actually running VOD platforms. And we start with Spain, FilmIn. So please tell us about the market from your point of view. How does it look there?
Good morning, everyone. Sorry for my voice, this broken voice. My name is Jaume Ripoll. I'm one of the founders and head of acquisitions of FilmIn. I'm a survivor, not an expert, and the only guy who actually wears a tie here in the room. So it makes me more expert, I think. What is FilmIn about? Because FilmIn is, I would like to say, it's the Maggie Smith of the VOD services in Europe. We created the platform 13 years ago. Netflix, by that time, was sending DVDs by mail. iTunes was selling songs, not movies. And us, Spanish crazy guys, facing the worst economical crisis since the Civil War in the country with the highest piracy rate in Europe, we developed a VOD platform based on subscription and transactional VOD service. It's quite obvious to say that nowadays TVOD, transactional video on demand, is not death, but on the verge of death. So mainly we are a subscription VOD service right now. In Spain, Portugal, and also in Mexico. In Spain, we have a large library of titles, 14,000 titles, which is a huge number of films and documentaries. 15% documentaries, so it's like more or less 2,000 titles. 65% European content, and in Spain we have Netflix, Amazon, HBO, Sky, Rakuten, Movistar Plus, BitTorrent, and so on. And even with this big, huge competition, we are still alive, we are still here, and this year we will double the number of subscribers versus last year. And how, have we achieved these goals? First, content. Second, branding. Third, developing specific apps for smart TV, mobiles, tablets, and web. It doesn't make sense to launch a platform only on web. We are in 2020, almost 2020, and only 25 to 30% of the audience watch documentaries and feature films and series through the web. So mainly smart TV, connected TV on Samsung, LG, Philips, Sony, PlayStation 4, Xbox, and so on. Sorry, it's nice, this green and red button. So, regarding our content, the problem is not the lack of content, but the lack of interest to the content. So, we have signed agreements with more than 700 right holders from local distributors, international sales agents, international broadcasters, big major studios like Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer and Lionsgate in the States. And of course, we have high quality content thanks to our shareholders, because FilmIn we are lucky to have El Deseo, Wild Bunch, Metropolitan Film Export, Golem, Avalon, and Wanda as our main shareholders. So the most important, I would say, local distributors and producers in Spain and France. We have reached agreements, of course, with directors, film producers who contact us, who send us an email and say, okay, we want to release our film through your platform. We work on a revenue share basis, on MG basis, and flat fee basis. It depends of the content and the provider. And this year, we'll reach 1 million views for documentaries in the platform, which is a huge number, only in Spain. Those are Spanish figures. Sorry. How we promote our content? Thanks to our team, basically. And by team, I mean editorial team and IT, the IT guys. We have algorithms generated by user views, of course, like Netflix and Amazon and so on. But our the most attractive algorithm are the human algorithm. So we develop specific collections, and like the ones you can see here. For instance, I don't know if you know Rosalía. Rosalía is a main Spanish singer, so a pop star, or flamenco star, I don't know, worldwide star. Okay, so when Rosalía, and I want to speak about her, because when Rosalía released her album, El Mal Querer, she said, okay, my reference in the cinema business are Gaspar Noé, Valdelomar, Wong Kar-wai, and Kieslowski, which is crazy because he's a flamenco pop star, but it's okay. And then when Rosalia released the album, then we developed like a specific collection, say, the films that inspire by Rosalia and Rosalia's album. And it's a good way for us to highlight some of these like long tail films that maybe are quite forgotten in the last page of the catalog. So it's, once again, it's not lack of content, but lack of interest. Next year, and it's like a premiere, next year we will release a specific app. It will be called the FilmIn Times, and it will be specific for the films, theater and documentaries that will talk about the history in Europe during the 20th century. And this will be released by February, available on mobile and the website. And it will be like a specific application for educational purpose, to highlight this kind of documentaries that deals with the Second World War, economic crisis, Brexit, populism, Viktor Orban, and so on. And at last but not least, festival collaborations, thanks to Docs Barcelona, who invited me to the stage. With Docs Barcelona, which is the most important documentary film festival in Spain, it takes place in Barcelona during May. It's a good spot, no? Yeah, May, perfect. With them, we have been collaborating since the beginning, I would say 10 years ago. And with Docs Barcelona, among other festivals like Innovate, Documenta Madrid, and Rotterdam Film Festival, what we do is to release some of the films that they will screen off on the festival on our platform, on our site, on Film in Spain, during 1 week or 1 month. All of them are available for our subscribers. So it's a good way for them and for us to introduce these kind of films to a bigger audience. After 1 week or 1 month, the films are out of our platform, and some of them finally will get a theatrical release, and after 1 year or maybe half a year, they will find their spot in our platform once again. And there's another thing, which is called Atlantida Film Fest. Atlantida Film Fest is our festival, is the child of our eyes, my eyes. It was created 9 years ago. Now I would say that it's the largest online film festival in Europe, besides my French Film Festival. This year we achieved 100,000 viewers on the films. It takes place during 1 month in summer, from the end of June till the end of July, 1 month online, and 1 week in Mallorca, you know, this German island in Spain. It's quite nice, so you are all invited to the festival, because the festival is free, so you are all invited to come to Mallorca to enjoy and discover these European films, because the festival deals with European subjects, 100% European films. 1 month online, 1 week in Mallorca. Online is not free for sure. This stay is expensive, so it's I need to pay it. So it's 15 euros for one month for these 110 films. So it's cheap. It's not expensive, but it's cheap. And there's a question, of course, the typical question of our sales agents and film producers and film directors saying, okay, how much money can we expect of our documentary in your platform? I would say it depends. 5,000 euros, 5 euros. It depends of your documentary and how we promote the documentary, when we release the documentary. Let's discuss it afterwards, maybe, or during the Q&A session. It is in following this Star Wars thing. Maybe we are Strikes Back, no? We are the Resistance. The Phantom Menace, like Netflix, Amazon, Sky, HBO, and so on, will pay you more, for sure. But and please sign with them, sign the deal with them, or with the local broadcasters. But if they don't want your film, if they reject your documentary, or you don't find a local broadcasters, then you can reach us, because we will be there trying to find new ways to promote and to enhance the audience for your documentaries. Thank you very much. This is this is a very nice ad that we put in the subway in Madrid, in Barcelona. It's Scratch and Win, if you don't know in Spain. Thank you.
Very good. From FilmIn to CineSquare, Kiril, welcome to you. please tell us a little bit about how you function and operate with the CineSquare.
Yeah, thank you very much. Hello to everybody. I'm Kiril Gjozev, coming from the heart of the Balkans, representing CineSquare. My country is officially now North Macedonia, coming from Skopje. And like I said, I'm representing CineSquare, which is a VOD platform from Skopje, but operating in the region of the Balkan countries, from Romania until Turkey, uniting 13 countries. And in all these 13 countries, there is a population of 140 million citizens. CineSquare is a project of Cutaway, company for distribution and production, which is existing from 2010. And basically, that time, the distribution was heading only in the theaters and mostly for the European titles. And we saw that after some festivals and after a couple of free and available art house cinemas, the films that we have, we can't use anymore because there is no possibilities and there is no space. And that's why we said, okay, let's try to develop a VOD. That time, 2013, 2014, and the VOD in the market, in the region, was a new thing. And believe me, everything that is new in the Balkan already existing in the West Europe. So we didn't invent hot water, but we tried to do something that can be representative, at least. And at this stage, we have CineSquare, which is VOD, like I said, operating in 30 countries, having more than 800 films, a combination of features, documentaries, short, and animations. The models that we are operating, and we have it's transactional, subscriptional, and advertising VOD. We are offer monitoring like content providers, monitoring of your films at any time on the platform. We are promoting in all these 13 countries, designing the promotional materials, encoding the films, preparing translation and subtitles, and of course, technical maintenance that is needed for the platform. Once your films earned at least 100 euros, we are transferring the money to you. So SVOD model, it's launched this year, and we have 3 types of subscription: 1 month, 3 months, and 1 year. The price is, I think, very cheap, depending of the potential that the citizens in that region can afford. Advertising model, it's free content, and the money from the right holders are coming from the marketing agencies that are covering the space on the platform. Transactional VOD model, it's the one that recently is working mostly on our web page. VOD platform, and the prices for that, it's €1 for feature, 50 cents for documentaries, and 55 cents for short films. The rights that we are looking for are not exclusive and based on the revenue sharing, which is starting from 50-50 and can go up to 80-20 on the behalf of the right holders, and that it's depending of the number of the titles that we can agree and depending of the content that you're offering. And in CineSquare we have an ecosystem which includes online film festival like Jaume already said they invented in Spain. We tried to have something similar in the Balkans. It's the first festival on that kind in the Southeastern Europe, happening twice per year, and there is 4 selections, and it's a 1-month edition. And it's a very good opportunity for sales agents, for producers to promote the films in that region. The one other thing is country in focus. Recently we started with Swiss films, and it's the plan is to have 1 month country in focus, and from that country in focus to have a couple of titles that we can present in the region, and after that someone like a festival or some other institution can be interested, or even some distributors from the region to be interested in these films to do theatrical release in their own country. Online rooms, something which is very interesting to festivals and institutions. Recently, 2 weeks ago, we had something with Cine Days, which is the biggest festival of European film in Skopje. And CineSquare, it's a part of the webpage where we have offer for kids content. And we really take care of young viewers. We have subtitle and some of the films are dubbed. This year, our focus is on localization. That means that in all these 13 countries, up to now we were dealing the all business from Skopje, but from this year, we had partners from Romania, Greece, Bulgaria, Serbia, and Albania. And the purpose of having these partners local is to try to build a local awareness of the platform, to build a local brand of the CineSquare. And these local partners, they have a lot of more connections, and good connections than us from Skopje, and they can bring local content on the platform. And localization of the platform at this year will be only on Romanian, Greek, and Bulgarian, meaning that the whole page, if you're coming from IP address from Bulgaria, for instance, will be on Bulgarian language, prepared and create only for Bulgarian territory, and will be a possibility to have Bulgarian local currency, and the right holder can set to us, okay guys, I want to have at least for instance, you are offering €1, I want my film to have €5 like a price. If you think that this is something that the audience can afford and can pay, we don't have a problem to do that. The marketing that we're doing, it's kind of online and offline. So far we have good experience in doing festival and then date releases, meaning at the same time some of the films are running on the festivals in Skopje and Albania. We had this experience so far, and so festivals and online on the platform. So the people who are not able to go in the theaters to see the film for the festival, they can put it home and see it at the same time. And upcoming things that we are looking for and working on, it's a mobile app for TV, smart TV, Android applications, and looking for adding more interesting content for the platform. Looking forward for your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kiril. Last but not least, we pass the word to you, William.
Thank you.
And tell us a little bit about how the VOD world looks from your point of view.
No worries, thank you very much. Firstly, it's a pleasure to be here. Very nice to meet you all, and I hope the presentations have been helpful. So my presentation is a little bit different to the other ones. I'm actually going to provide half my presentation is going to be a bit of an industry overview, for building on what you've already heard, and then I'm going to talk about what we're doing and some of the changes that we're making, because we are going through a number of transitional changes as a result of what's happening in the industry. So, as I mentioned, times are changing in VOD. The industry is constantly innovating, constantly changing in terms of its business model, and we operate a global platform. So we see, we take a global view on what we're seeing outside of just Europe. Sorry? I can't hear you very well. Okay, sorry, is that better? Okay, sorry, apologies. So what we're seeing is you're seeing now a number of technology companies who are beginning to really focus on streaming, and it's called the streaming wars. So what was already a very competitive and tough market, as Jaume quite rightly pointed out, is actually getting even increasingly competitive. And you can see this with the emergence of Apple launching their service, Amazon pouring more money into their service, and big Asian conglomerates like Tencent putting a lot of money in. So what you're seeing here is you're seeing the evolution of the amount of income that's being generated, and you can see that the public sector broadcasters are seeing relatively small growth. growth. The majority of the growth that we're seeing is actually in the tech sector and the platforms that they're running. However, one can't escape the impact that Netflix has had on the market, and its impact is quite far-reaching. Now, this slide is taken from some EBU data relatively recently. Is absolutely fascinating. I was in Helsinki a couple of months ago attending an EU event, and it's the first time I've actually seen the Commission talk quite openly about other platforms than Netflix disrupting the market. And what you can see here is you can see that Apple are entering with their streaming platform, Disney Plus have entered, but also Alphabet, which is Google, Microsoft, and of course Tencent, which is one of China's leading technology companies. They're all pouring considerable amounts of money and resources into our sector. What that's doing is it's giving the consumers more choice, but it's also making our job as independent platforms very, very difficult. And of course, bear in mind, they're all running different business models, and that's having a big impact on how the consumers are choosing to watch their content. Nevertheless, it's quite clear that Netflix and Amazon are very much leading the way in terms of directly acquiring content and in terms of acquiring content earlier in the production cycle. Having said that, I know that FilmIn, you've also started to do some direct producing yourself, so even the smaller platforms like ourselves are trying to get involved in that. And Disney is pouring a few billion into its production. Interestingly enough, Disney anticipated acquiring 20 million subscribers this year. Anyone want to hazard a guess how many they got in the first week? It was around that 10, 11 million in 1 week. So they got off to a very quick, explosive start, although they did have some technical problems. So what we're seeing is basically the platforms beginning to acquire all rights or acquiring titles earlier in the life cycle. Quick show of hands. Who here has heard of iFlix? Show your hand. Okay, very few people, right? iFlix is one of the biggest platforms in Asia and the Middle East. They operate in over 40 countries. And in some markets, they are bigger than Netflix. So they are now making their own original content, as are Netflix. So what's happening is earlier in the financing of your documentaries and your films, these kind of platforms are coming up to you and saying, hey, we can help finance your content, which is fantastic if you want to get financing in that way. But obviously you must appreciate that they're going to want exclusivity. So if you want your content to be seen in the theatres, that may not be possible. If you want it to be seen on broadcasters, that's highly unlikely to happen. If they don't come in the originals, they pick it up exclusives or they pick it up in all rights. We are seeing experimentation there. So Amazon have and Netflix have released films in the cinema as well as online. But that's the exception, it's not the norm, and that's more for award purposes than anything else. So yeah, VOD commissioning, you can see that we anticipate that growing. And of course, that our platforms would love to start commissioning content as well, although we don't have sufficient budgets to do that on a large scale at the moment. So that was some industry background just to highlight the changes that's taking place. Now, our platform, as Jaume quite rightly pointed out, it's a question of being a survivor. We've been going 4 or 5 years now. We grew to have around 500,000 to 1 million visitors per month, which by indie standards is pretty good. And we've picked up various awards and made various successes in the process. The majority of our traffic actually comes from Asia because we have quite a strong Asian focus. But we're also, my business partner's Asian, and it's markets that we know reasonably well, although around 55% of our content is European. And as I say, we've got around 200,000 people have signed up. We've got a large footfall, and a considerable catalogue of just under 3,000 titles. But the reality is that, as Jaume quite rightly pointed out, and Silvia mentioned, TVOD, which was our original model, is not growing that fast. Fundamentally, people don't want to pay for content. That's the depressing reality. Sorry to say that. So what we see happening in Asia is that we see that there's a huge growth in linear IPTV channels, and also in advertising. So we are moving our main platform along to be what's called a blended model. So we're going to have TVOD, and we're also going to have AVOD, depending on the markets that you're in. So that's a process that we're going through right now. It's the biggest change in our company. We're also focusing increasingly on aggregating, so trying to pick up rights for content to other platforms so that we can give content rights holders wider distribution. And we're also putting together exclusive compilations for short films. But I think the main reason, one of the main things I want to point out is we've just been part funded by Creative Europe. And what we noticed was a lot of blogs, languages, were recommending our platform because we have tons of different languages, all the way from French to Japanese to Indonesian, etc., etc. So what we asked 20,000 of our users was, are you coming to watch this French film to learn French, this Greek film to learn Greek, etc., etc.? And around 70 to 80% said yes. So we realized that there was an opportunity to use film as a medium to learn the language and the culture of a country. And we looked at the market and we realized that this is actually an area which is ripe for disruption. And secondly, and perhaps most importantly, people increasingly don't want to pay for content, but they will pay for a service that adds value to their life, that helps them with something. So we're launching an edutainment platform to help people to learn language and culture through film. It's ironic because I have linguistic abilities of a fish, but yeah, I'm setting this up. So this is launching in Q1 next year, maybe Q2. We've been very lucky that Creative Europe has been extremely supportive of what we're doing, and we are looking for content. Funnily enough, Benelux is our focus territory for launch. We're focusing on Dutch content, French content, German content, Luxembourgish content, and of course some English content. So I'm really keen to talk to you all about this because the Netherlands is a very important country for us. So as I say, the platform is going to go live in Q1. By the way, I just want to point out the lights are directly shining, so none of us can actually see you, so sorry. They need to work on the lighting here, it's crazy. We're launching this in Q1, Q2 next year. What's going to happen is, if you're learning a language, let's say I'm learning Greek, and I want to log in, what will happen is it will pick up my Greek words that I'm learning, and it will map it to our Greek database. Then it will recommend content as my level of Greek improves, and it will have games, it will have quizzes, but it will also have some really cool subtitle technology that we're working on. But unfortunately, we have to subtitle into 6 languages, so this is proving to be a lot of work, but we're using AI and machine learning to do at least 90% of that work. So essentially, teachers will be able to log in, they'll be able to use, this is much better by the way, I can see you now, we'll use it as a way to help them with their classroom. We're going to have 2 versions of the platform. We're going to have an adult version and a school version, so to speak. There's going to be loads of tests and quizzes. We're also talking to potential broadcasters about licensing that technology. We're very lucky that we've got some great partners on board to help us with the project. So, documentaries will be fantastic content to include in that because we really think that it would help people. And it's going to operate as an SVOD, so it's going to be around €10 for individual subscribers, but it's going to be significantly less for schools on a per user basis. Just to quickly summarise, quite clearly we can see that the market is radically changing, and that, as I say, people are increasingly not paying for content. So where I personally see the market moving is TVOD is going to continue to decline in relative size. People will pay for 4 or 5 subscriptions. I firmly believe that my colleagues' platforms are going to be one of the subscriptions that people will pay for example, in Spain. They'll subscribe to the likes of Sky, Netflix, but also FilmIn. But we see advertising being a very important medium for the older content in particular to be seen. And but to do that, you need to get very wide numbers of people. And the reason that we're focusing so much on edutainment is, as I say, you need to provide a service that helps people. And you need to ensure that it's not just the content, it also adds value to their life. And fundamentally, just to stress this point, we're essentially technology companies, and it's extremely difficult to do what we do, but we are fighting the good fight, I think you could say. We're trying to strike back in the way that Jaume quite rightly pointed out. So yeah, please bear with us, but we are trying to help the industry innovate, and we're trying to protect and promote European content, which is not always easy, but we are making good progress. So I guess I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. So much better to stand there.
Very good. Keep the microphone.
Okay, no worries.
All right. So I hope this really gives you a taste of some of the current things that are happening with the different VOD initiatives, because I think it's also one of the things that is important about VOD, that it's changing all the time, and you have to be updated on what are the latest changes and what are the latest mechanisms. But I want to start out with one thing that you pointed out, Silvia, that you're working on, because you talked about transparency. And how can we actually improve the transparency in the VOD market? So can you talk to us a little bit about how are you actually working on that?
Well, is working? No, take this. Okay. Well, we Eurovod cannot force bigger company to share their data. I think that actually recently Apple says that they won't share any data because they are not obliged to do that. Netflix is sharing a little bit more, but we are. I'm not talking on behalf of them. What we can do is at least understand the independent sector. So that's why also the VOD platforms that are under the umbrella of Eurovod are beginning cooperating quite a lot. The first step that we did in a year was actually asking to the European Audiovisual Observatory to begin collecting our data, and we are cooperating also with the VOD Lumiere that has been launched in April last year. Actually, we cannot at the moment be like the point of reference for the analytics in the VOD sector, but we are really working on it for the cooperation and the circulation of the information among our members. So there is work to do, but we are beginning collecting the data, the information among our networks. It's already something, because there are several data that actually we can share also with the industry that will be useful, like not only the performances of a certain film, but the kind of approach of the audience we have. I mean, there are a lot of information that could be helpful in our network, but also with the industries. It's kind of young market, so we still have to find our own way, I think, to keep this flow of information be more fluid, because we are tech companies, let's say, but we are all different also, and we are a different level of technology, so we have to find a little bit our own standards, I think. But cooperation is really the key, as I said before.
And a question to the rest of you: how do you feel about sharing data and having it out in the open?
I think we live in the Tinder and Grindr age, and on Tinder and Grindr everybody lies about its weight, its age, its everything. So in the VOD market, everybody lies. Who cares about the data? And what data are we talking about? First, data regarding how much money Netflix have you paid for the documentary, which is a private data. It's a contract, and then how much money Studio Canal or Outlook or whatever have you paid. So it's not a haven't been never public this kind of information. And regarding the audience and how many people watch your film, of course it's important. It's important for the producer and for the director probably. But I understand that Netflix and Apple and Amazon approach say I don't want to share this kind of information. It's of course for a speaker's point of view is not good, and the European Observatory it's facing its our Grindr and Tinder problem as well. I think the problem is not the data but the money. Of course, you can see FilmIn has 1 million views on for documentaries in the platform during this year. But how much money are we talking about? So okay, my documentary has been achieved a milestone, 100,000 admissions in not admissions because it's not we're not talking about admissions like in cinema, in theaters. We're talking about views and how much money is a view in Bulgaria and Macedonia. It's like I don't know, out of 0.00001 euros, and in Spain maybe 0.001 euros, and this is a problem of a subscription video on demand age. It's if you want to earn the same amount of money than a guy who works for Lidl in Germany, in Spotify you must be Rihanna or Beyonce, and what about in the documentary side? It's probably the same. Now we are giving much more money to the sales agents and to the creators and to the companies like Dos Barcelona each year, but it's not the same amount of money that we used to earn 10 years ago on with the DVD market, when the pay TV are not in the bad state like nowadays. So once again, I think the problem is money, not data.
But then again, of course, a way to the money is also, analyzing the data and understanding the patterns. So I mean, a way of also having the European VOD platform striking back would be to unite and learn from each other.
Yeah, and of course, lack of transparency is never a good thing, and there's been a problem regarding the European VOD platforms. We are looking at as a competitors and not as allies. Yeah. And thanks to Eurovod and thanks to a panel like this one, maybe we can try to build some common bridge and common links.
Yeah. A comment on that as well, sharing?
Regarding the sharing, we implemented one special space in the web in the VOD where it's only dedicated to the sales agents or to the producers or distributors, and from that part they can see it at the real moment, every time that they prefer, to see how the films are reacting, how many views, how many payments coming from each country that we have the rights for, and we think that it's a right way for getting trust with them. Most of the producers, especially, they're not they're not expecting that when you give them the report, the figures are the real one, and we want to build a trust. So the report will be there, but you have the possibility and every time to see if these numbers are correct or not.
Let me add just one thing. We have this on our back end, on the back office from FilmIn. The sales agents or right owner can now see in real time the figures on the films in the platform.
Cheers. Yeah, we also try to do that, but the reality is we try and provide as much data as we can. So you can see how many people have come on the page, how many people have watched the trailers, what countries, some of the demographics. But Jaume is absolutely right. The data is useful for helping perhaps with your next film, but the reality is it's money that counts, right? So unfortunately, VOD yet hasn't replaced the significant loss that we've seen with the decline of DVD, and that's going to take some time. So the advice I would give you all, which I probably should have mentioned, is try to get your film as widely distributed as you can. And pretty much all of us don't take exclusive rights, so we would never prohibit you from having it on another platform. by all means, if someone offers you a nice MG and they want exclusivity, then sure, go with it. You should. But fundamentally, if you want to make VOD work, if you want to maximize your revenue, then you need to take a much wider approach to the platforms and try and distribute it as widely as you can. And this is fundamentally important, I think, and it's something that we perhaps should have said earlier.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's another point of advice for the young directors and young producers. It's harvest your own data, because you learn how to use Google Analytics, how to use Twitter Analytics, Instagram Analytics, and so on, which it's very useful tools that probably some of the people from the film business don't know how to use it and how to understand the figures that those tools provide you. So this is an important thing. We need to change our approach to the marketing and how to promote our content, and that's quite useful. I'm a professor in the university in Spain, and the students are quite younger, 22 years old. They don't know how to use Google Analytics, and maybe they want to launch like their own website for the documentary, but they don't know who is watching looking for the website and the performance of the trailer on YouTube or Vimeo. They don't know how to understand and how to read the statistics.
Yeah, just one other bit of advice. When you're right at the start of looking at your documentary, right at the beginning, think about who are you going to market to? Who's going to be your audience? Who's going to be interested in this issue? Who has a passion for the subject? Who is affected by the subject? So I can give you a very quick example. We had two Oscar-nominated directors for a documentary short film called Dreaming Against the World, which is a short film about the life of Mu Xin, who was an artist in China, and he died. And he was in prison for many years. And he only ever did one interview, and it was with these two guys. It's 39 minutes. And they said, we'd like to charge €5 for this. And we thought, what? TVOD? 5 €5 for a 39-minute documentary? Are you insane? We thought they were crazy. But we did it because they've got good pedigree, they're well regarded. And it nearly crashed our website, literally. Because of the amount of traffic we were having from China, which is a nightmare to deal with in terms of streaming and in terms of payment gateways. My God, it was horrendous. But my point here is that they did exactly what Jaume is saying. They knew exactly where their users were. They had a great campaign on the Chinese apps like WeChat, and they identified exactly who was passionate about the life of this artist. And if you want your documentary to be successful on VOD, that's absolutely key. Identifying who would have a passion for your subject, and then using the social media channels that we just heard to really understand that better.
I assume there might be a question or two from you in the room, so if you want to have a question, yeah, there's a microphone coming to you.
It's a very simple request, something that shouldn't be problematic if you've got the information in your systems already. If you could share with EFA, EWA, the European Women's Audiovisual Network, information about women-made or directed or shot or edited films, if that information could somehow just be automatically collected, not the users, but the actual material that's going out, that would certainly help those of us who make films in Europe who are women to have yet more substance. We have for theatrical and television, but perhaps less for the online stuff. I'd really like to know as well if it's a huge opportunity, especially for women who don't get into the mainstream stuff. That's one question. The second thing is about the educational potential. If for the other stream systems or the other online systems, if you could comment about what William was talking about as well. Is that potential for you? And is that a huge percentage of your energy or just a small amount, please? Especially for younger people as audience.
Thank you. In our case, regarding women-directed films, Atlantida, for instance, the festival, 50% of the films were directed by women this year. So
if that information could be
yes. Yeah, it's okay. We can do it for sure. Figure it out. And then regarding educational, we've been working with high schools, institutes, and universities since quite the beginning of the platform 10 years ago. We have developed like specific channels for the students, for film students, and they have access for €5 to €50 per year. It depends of the amount of films, and in some of the cases the school pays for the subscription. In other cases it's the students who pays for the subscription, and thanks to this, thousands of students in Spain have access to the European content in our platform.
Kiril, working with educational, is it something you are planning, or how does that look for you?
At this stage, we didn't achieve to do something with educational, but it's something that we can consider for the future.
Yeah, very good. There was somebody else with a question. Yeah, over here. Oh. Microphone is coming to you.
Yes, I had a question. William, you were explaining that you're shifting for a mixed kind of VOD between TVOD and AVOD. And I was actually, it would be very interesting to hear a little bit more how you will do the AVOD, because of course, as the catalog is more it's European films, it's auto films, so how will you play so that actually you can still attract the audiences, but still, because it's an interesting answer to the fact that unfortunately there are still many people that won't want to pay also for auto films, unfortunately.
Yeah, thanks, Christine. Yeah. To be frank with you, to be frank with everyone, this is single-handedly the hardest thing that we're doing at the moment. You have no idea how difficult it is, because you need to get the streaming costs down to where the CPM that you get is sufficient to cover the cost of streaming, and that's actually very difficult. So we have to get it down below 1 cent per gigabyte, which is hard. Then you have to get the right kind of advertising on board for the right kind of films. Then you also have to get the to get the CPM up so that you get sufficient income to cover the cost of the streaming. And the way that we're going to do that is through direct partnerships with advertisers. And then perhaps fundamentally the biggest challenge that we're facing is we have not as many contracts as FilmIn, but we have a good few hundred contracts, and all our contracts are TVOD. So it's a huge rights issue in terms of having to go back to every single one of our content partners and say, look, we're still going to offer TVOD, but we also have to offer AVOD and also linear, because this is the reality of the market that we're facing. If we don't make this challenge, we will die, and so will many other platforms as well. You have to innovate, you have to try and experiment. And you know, it's single-handedly, it's the biggest challenge that we're facing, because it's extremely difficult to do. But we should hopefully get there. It might be Q1 or Q2 next year to make that change, but it's necessary, because in some markets like Germany, TVOD still does reasonably well. But on the whole, it's only really new releases that are going to work. So what we're going to do is we're going to do TVOD for newer releases, and we're going to do AVOD for older releases, and use the AVOD as a way to drive TVOD as well. But it's a very good question, and it's a challenge that we're certainly facing.
All right. There's a question in the back.
Hello, I have a question. I'm doing theatrical and distribution. I run a cinema, so I thought it was a great idea to open my own little platform, only transactional. And I think what is interesting for me going to the festivals is also to pick up the films which are not readily usable for theatrical distribution. So I think it's wonderful to have a platform, to have it running, but basically we're showing all the same films. So is anyone working on solving the problem of getting actual translations and stuff made available so we can actually afford to also have alternative distribution on these platforms and not only the same stuff circulated everywhere?
So the issue is the public, the general public don't understand this industry. That's the reality. the general public don't understand, why can't I just go online and see a film that I want to see? Why isn't it available on Netflix? Why isn't it available on Disney? Why isn't it available on Amazon? The reality is they don't understand how the rights management work. They don't understand how the film chain works. Now, doing what you're doing, I applaud you for what you're doing. There are a few platforms out there that are actually focused on cinemas and partnering with cinemas, and that might be a good idea for you to work with them to potentially use their technology for your own cinema and for your own titles. In terms of translations, again, the problem is that often we get a film with English subtitles, which is fine, but we need multiple languages. And often, you'd be amazed how often the rights owners don't have the adequate subtitles, or they don't have sufficient quality trailers or promotional materials. So then we have to put a lot of money into doing that. So that's a real problem. There has been some efforts. So Realize, or EYZ Media, which is one of our partners, platforms in Eurovod, they have a subtitling translation business which automates that whole cycle. I think they've been a bit successful with that, but the EU Commission has noticed and identified that this is a problem that we are trying to solve in terms of translations. And certainly with my business, we're going to have 6, 7, 8 languages, so it's going to be a real problem for us as well.
And regarding wait a second. Yes, and one of the things that we did actually, thanks to the European Commission with Eurovod, is actually we are developing a professional platform for the VOD sector with also a part dedicated for sharing the material and subtitles. So we know that's a problem, and we know also that there are a lot of subtitles out there that are still, we don't know where they are. So that's why also the professional platform for the VOD sector will be useful for this kind of issues.
Anybody else with questions or comments? Yeah, there's one here in the front.
Thank you. All of you actually touched on the topic of willingness to pay. And of course, that's the new standard, the new norm, that people are used to very cheap content, and it creates a problem for you because you don't have big venture capitalists behind you that can just afford to make a loss. You also, when you go to advertising, you don't have this huge pool of data that the big technology companies have. So I wonder how you manage to profile yourselves to people who want their documentary to be seen. I think all of you admitted already, like, okay, we cannot offer those amounts, but we are your ally in some way. FilmIn has shareholders that already demonstrate they are allies. It could also happen with cinemas, but I wonder how you manage to do that and how you foresee it in the future.
We've been profitable since 4 years ago, so it's like finally after 10 years losing money like crazy. Now, the last 3-4 years, we are now in a green number, so profit on profits. Regarding, we've been doing even theatrical release with the documentaries we acquired this year. So we are expanding our, based on how to promote our content. We have a quarter million followers on social media. We are a huge brand as Netflix and HBO in Spain. So almost 1 million subscribers to our database. So for us, it's easy to reach a huge audience when we release a specific content. And since usually we don't sign on an exclusive basis, so for you, you can sign with us and then release the film on other services, even local broadcasters who don't ask for exclusive VOD rights, like Televisión Española or Televisión de Cataluña. Therefore, I think it's a good way for you to get money, like 2, 3, 4, 5K for a documentary in Spain. It's a huge amount of money. With Doc Barcelona, we have been huge partners, and during the last 3 years, each year, like we doubled the amount of money that we have gave them the year before. So it's I think it's on for subscription in Spain and Portugal. There's a bright future. And why? Because we've been branding the platform like crazy since the last 10 years, and now we are a well-established brand. Probably if we want to launch FilmIn in a different countries, we need to spend like millions for achieving this level of success. But in Spain and Portugal, mainly in Spain, I think the future is quite good.
Anybody else who wants to comment on it? Otherwise, we take the next question because there was someone in the back with a question.
I have a question to Silvia. Is there also like a campaign in your network for marketing, so where you work together with because I think it's to be visible, like the big players, Netflix. It's the biggest problem I see in the VOD market of European content. So is there some cooperation within your network?
So we have to say that since last year, Eurovod opened up to other VOD platforms, and we really wanted to communicate more with the film industry. So the first thing that we could do is putting the people together. And that's why, thanks to Creative Europe, we developed the training program, the European VOD meeting. So the first thing is getting people together, which was not the case before. So we already talked about these issues during our workshop, but we realized that it's so much important that we actually have even to focus more about that. We didn't, at the moment, put in place already some activity for sharing marketing information outside the European VOD meetings and all these professional events where we actually are discussing among ourselves and with the industry. But it's a huge topic, this one of marketing. That's why also we wanted to develop the professional platform for the VOD sectors to not only talk within the sector, but also with the rest on the industry, and try to understand how we could better cooperate together, how we can have better communication and ideas. So these are the first things that we did in 1 year. But of course, there is a lot of room for for other activities.
Let me add just one thing. We cannot, as a platform, we cannot develop a proper marketing campaign if we don't have the good assets for the film. Usually, it's a common problem in the documentary business is that the artworks are not quite good. Maybe we have a vertical poster. That's it. Not a wide one, because we are still thinking about the theatrical release. But come on, in the iPhone you are watching the films there, on the iPad and the smart TV, and then you don't have the poster, proper artwork for this, the screen. First, second, okay, it's stills, maybe 2 stills, low files or low quality. Shit. Third, you don't have a proper trailer. I know, yeah, we have a 2.5 minutes trailer. Come on, we are in 2020. Nobody watches 2 minutes 20 seconds trailer unless you have Cats or Star Wars. And then those kind of things. We need good marketing materials. Otherwise, of course, and then we can develop a marketing campaign with you. Otherwise, we cannot do anything. Of course, we can say to our designer, please spend this morning trying to do a better poster. We used to do these kind of things, but it's maybe 1 out of 10 documentaries we can do these kind of things.
So really important advice, I think, and it's a problem we see again and again with documentary. We are almost out of time, but before we close, I think just a comment from all of you, because I think there's a very clear pattern that we see with all of you. I mean, you opened a VOD channel, and then you all added something else, right? And it's a little bit the direction that I see the VOD market now, that, you know, having films maybe is not enough. There needs to be that extra thing. So is this where the VOD market is heading? Is that the service aspect, or how do you see, I mean, how do we really make the European VOD platforms strike back? Is that the service aspect?
Yeah, Absolutely. Being able to offer content is one thing, but as we've all said, people increasingly don't want to pay for content, so you need to add a service that adds value to their life, helps them in some way. So it's either to access, for example, in our platform case, language and cultural learning, or it could be to offer access to a particular topic or something that they care about. Maybe it's a form of curation. FilmIn is fantastic in its curation. That's a good example of where you're adding service. But radically, most fundamentally, we need to keep innovating in terms of how we try and experiment with marketing. Now, the EU Commission does a fantastic job with this in terms of supporting through the online promotion call, and I applaud them for that. But we need to be more experimental with our release strategies. We need to be more experimental with our marketing. Jaime is absolutely right. We need to have better marketing materials because honestly, it can be really tough sometimes with some of the materials that we're given. We need to have multiple languages. You need to get your content onto multiple platforms. And it's just really important that we continue to experiment because the reality is European films struggle to travel internationally. The US funds actually they don't make that many films, but they pour a ton of money into marketing. We are at a competitive disadvantage before we've even made our documentaries. So we need to find ways to innovate, to connect with the public, and to make them to realize that this documentary is worth seeing because it touches on something that's relevant and valuable to them. And you can only do that if you look at stuff like the marketing channels, if you look at the communities, if you get the right materials. Unfortunately, just putting the film online doesn't work. You've got to do more than just put it online and hope that they will come. Nah, that ain't gonna work. You've got to really try and experiment, and you've got to try marketing in new and experimental ways.
Other comments to that? How do we strike back as the European VOD platforms?
It's working, this one. With you, because it's, I think, all the film industry that need to innovate and better reach the public. It's not just a matter of a VOD platform solving the problems of the audiovisual industry. It's the audiovisual industry that need to think a little bit audience since the beginning.
I think it is in a digital world we cannot do this like a binary thinking. No, they are not too big to fail. We are not too small to survive. I think there's a space in between, and we are facing in a good way.
Yeah, for sure that having only movies, it's not your job is not finished. Yeah. After you're having the films, you need to try to how to get these films to the right audience and how to attach the audience to these films. And that's why it's very important to think constantly on promotion and think constantly on technical part. And for producers and distributors, one, let's say, advice, try to be a little bit more open. So this agreement that we are looking for are, like all of us said, most non-exclusive, and they are 1 or 2 years. So if somebody like us is having possibility to offer for you 13 countries or at least 5 countries or 1 country that you've never been with propose so far, why not to try? So €1, I'm always saying that €1 is better than 0 at the end of the day. And if you have in this 1 or 2 years proposal from Netflix to have exclusivity on these countries, no problem, we can raise the agreement, go on with them.
Very good. And of course, we wanted this session to be just the beginning of the conversation because, as you all point out, I mean, it really takes that we work together and collaborate and really do a joint effort to actually secure that there is this cultural diversity and these great films available out there, and that we work together to do the very best we can to bring them in front of an audience. So I really encourage all of you also to see this session as the beginning of a conversation. And I mean, you're all here in the coming days at IDFA, so let's make this IDFA occasion the beginning of a longer conversation where we really try to discuss and also challenge each other on how can we make this work much better in the future. So before we completely close the session, I want all of you to give a warm hand to the panel. Thank you for joining.